All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL prop betting video. Going to be breaking down all the best bets here for the Monday night matchup between the LA Chargers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go in and get into it. And so I do want to start off with a game preview here for the spread and total. It is a toss-up, basically. 2.1 is the point spread. Looking at the point total, 41.5 total points, which I do find interesting there. I get why we are getting this line, but it's not like the Sunday night football matchup where like it was two very good defenses, okay? And it made sense why the over and under was at that line. These are two offenses that should be good against defenses that are not as elite. Now, don't get me wrong. I know some fans might be like, no, they're good. I get it. I respect the Chiefs and Houston's defense a little bit more. I think the big reason why we're getting this line here at 41.5 total points is the fact that the Eagles offense has looked pretty bad recently. And then the Chargers offense, just kind of a guessing game right now with Justin Herbert being injured with a left hand injury. It seems like he's going to play. There's still a question mark as to whether or not he will end up playing. I think he will. And then you also have Amari Hampton that still needs to be activated from the IR. Now, I think that'll be a 50-50 split between him and Cavani Vidal. I actually think prop betting wise, that's going to be a spot that we can get to. But in terms of betting on this game, it is tough. Like either Justin Herbert is good to go, and I would want to be on the Chargers to win, or he's not, and the Eagles should win by a decent amount. And what's interesting is if we kind of get into the best bets list here, guys, we're not getting really any plus EV bets for this game except for on ESPN Bet Now score bet the Eagles to cover at 2.5 points. I think I'd rather like bet on the Chargers money line on ESPN Bet at plus 115. Again, that's score bet now. But I think betting the over for the game total is probably the best route to go if you were going to bet on this game. But this game is going to be tough. It just is. You have the Eagles offense, guys, that, sure, Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown have been playing well recently. We like that. Jalen Hurts not necessarily playing all that well recently. Saquon Barkley, we can't exactly trust them. And then Dallas Goedert's like very much like touchdown dependent. And so it's tough to trust them there. And then with the Chargers, with their injuries, it is tough. Okay. That being said, I think an interesting bet would be Cameron Dicker to make 1.5 field goals. So we see his last 5 average has consistently been able to get this over, except for the last game there against the Raiders. With Justin Herbert being banged up, I do think that could lead to some drives being stalled out. But the Eagles defense has been pretty defeatable over the past few games, guys. Passing yards wise, they have given up 227 pass yards over the last 4 games. Not too crazy, but not great in comparison to other teams. And then they've given up 127 rush yards as well per game over the last 4 games, which is the second most. Okay, so that's why that's pretty significant. And the passing yards, just as an FY, 7th most as well. So defense has struggled more recently. And so I do think drives will get into scoring position for the Chargers, but I also do think they'll stall it. So I end up liking that bet there. Cameron Dicker over 1.5 field goals, a decent amount. And then I do kind of like into Cavani Vidal. I know Amari Hampton's going to be back. A lot of people are going to be excited for him to be back, especially with how good he looked prior to getting injured. But the coaching staff for the Chargers has been pretty vocal about Cavani Vidal and praising him a bunch, basically saying that's going to be a split backfield, a 1A, 1B situation. Now, I do think that's true. That might only be true for a couple of weeks. We'll see. But Vidal has been pretty impressive, guys. Now, he has been a little bit hit or miss in his games, which don't necessarily like that. Obviously, in the last game against the Raiders, really went off there. And you would think if Herbert is banged up, it would be more of a run-heavy approach. So I'm leaning more towards getting to Cavani Vidal over 35.5 rushing yards, or I like that idea of getting to his over rush attempts. But if you're telling me he's going to get 9 rush attempts, that's basically what this bet is telling us, then I do like then to get over 35.5 rush yards, I think is a bet that makes a ton of sense. And if we pull it up here on the PrizePicks optimizer, the projection data really likes him here. Okay, so I'm not saying that we necessarily need to bet on like Amari Hampton for his under if we're betting Cavani Vidal over it, because I do think they both can end up doing well, especially if it does being more of a split. But I do think I want to get to Vidal first. So I'm for over 35.5 rush yards. I think that ends up being a good spot. Now, I do want to call it that like Ladd McConkey to get under 11.5 for his fantasy score is the best bet here for the Chargers. 54% likelihood for that to hit. Again, if Herbert's struggling, I do think that it would correlate decently well with Cavani Vidal getting his over. And then another bet, obviously, that would correlate with that is Amari Hampton to get under his fantasy score. Average sportsbook line has him closer to 8.5, projection data closer to 9. Not a massive edge here, but if you were going to kind of do a stack where we're doing Vidal overs and Hampton unders, I think this would actually be the route that we would want to go. Almost a 54% likelihood for that bet to hit. Now, I mentioned that Justin Herbert could struggle. But the fact that we're getting his fantasy score even at like 15 and 16 between PrizePicks and Underdog and the average sportsbook line has it there, it kind of tells us that they think he's going to do well enough. And I do call this out because it is a low game total. And so I like if he was healthy, I think we'd just be getting to this bet and we'd be pretty happy to, I think. I ultimately think just with his weapons, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, and also Ladd McConkey, that I do still probably want to get to the over, but I also understand why people might not want to. I bet that I don't mind as well. Keenan Allen over 3.5 receptions. Keenan is someone that has had kind of a weird season over the past month. Last game, he finally had a pretty high route share once again, a 92% route share last week, and his numbers had actually been dipping to the point where they're giving Trey Harris a decent amount of looks. And so I did find that interesting that Keenan Allen was back there. And if that continues, if he does play 90% of the routes, then him to get 3.5 receptions should end up being a pretty easy bet to hit. But that is a guessing game. We don't know for sure that that's going to happen. And again, that is what makes the slate difficult for betting purposes. Now, I do think that there are some opportunities for us here with some anytime touchdown prop bets here. Like between Gadsden and Johnston, I actually kind of like getting to Gadsden just simply because he hasn't gotten a touchdown recently. I know it's not the best analysis, but you just argue that he's due for a touchdown. And again, if Justin Herbert's at least going to have a somewhat decent game, I don't mind that. But again, it is a lower scoring game. And so that is why we are seeing all these anytime touchdown bets be juiced up bets here on a PrizePicks demon bets. So not likely to happen. Okay. Which again, that's due to a low game total. Then we go ahead now and jump on into Philly, guys. The best bet that we're going to get is going to be Saquon Barkley to get under his fantasy score of 14.5. We see that bet has a 54.6% chance to hit. Jalen Hurts to not score a touchdown as well, about a 53% likely to hit. So we see Jalen Hurts, guys. I actually think that this actually is a bet that does make sense. Now, the issue that we have is, a DPI and the team's on the 1 yard line and he gets a rushing touchdown. Like that's random. You can't really rely on that. It would suck if he gets that. I would rather be on the under for sure, but it's not necessarily a bet that I love betting, honestly. And then Barkley has certainly struggled recently as well. We have seen some other running backs get a little bit more work, but he is still the workhorse running back there. The fact that he struggled against some decent matchups, it would be shocking to see him play well in this matchup against the Chargers. So the Chargers have been better defensively against opposing running backs really this whole year. And so I could see getting to this. I do agree with the data that this should be a bet. That is the likelihood for the under to hit at about 14.5, especially again, given the game total. Now from there, I don't necessarily like a lot of the bets that we are getting. We are seeing for Cooper DeJean, we do see his tackles and assists here of 4.5 has about a 51.7% chance to hit. And kind of given the fact that I do think that this is where the Chargers are going to choose. Given the fact that I do think that the Chargers are going to choose to try to rush the football a little bit more due to Herbert's injury, I actually think they could help DeJean maybe get a couple more assists, maybe not solo tackles. And the Chargers are a team that does like to get the football fast, especially right now with Herbert's offensive line struggling and with him being banged up. I think we'll see that. And so I do think that would probably lead to this being a good bet. Worth going out, he's gotten the over a bunch recently. We see Jalen Phillips as well. And then just the opposite there for Mitchell. So if you guys are someone that likes it based off of last 5 average, might not be terrible spots. And then the bet that I probably do like the most, and I don't necessarily love it because he is a little bit touchdown dependent here. He could get a touchdown, is going to be Dallas Goedert to actually get under his fantasy score, about a 53% likely to that. For that to hit 7.5. I don't mind it. Now, before we go ahead and get into the bet of the day, I do want to say I don't mind the idea of like juicing up either Devonta Smith or AJ Brown with their receiving yards. I do think there's a chance one of them ends up, splashing with a couple of big plays. It has been AJ Brown more so recently, the player that's been going off, but I do feel like it is a toss-up. I actually probably would prefer Devonta Smith a little bit more here in this game. Not a terrible way to go to maybe make up for if you're going to do Cameron Dicker for over 1.5 field goals made to add in a juiced up bet, but not necessarily a spot that I feel like we have to get to as well. And so let's go ahead and get into the bet of the day here for this Monday Night Showdown slate. Now, guys, full disclosure, I'm not going to have that much volume on this game. I don't feel like I have a good grasp on really what to expect. Again, just mostly due to the Eagles offense struggling lately. Chargers offensive line not looking great. Justin Herbert being banged up. And then also running back wise, we don't know exact workload. And so it is kind of just a guessing game here. Try and take the best dart throws possible. And obviously we're trusting the data here with some spots. So low scoring game. We do like Barkley and Dallas Goedert to probably struggle then if it's going to be lower scoring game. I'm kind of betting on Vidal to be more the 1A, to Hampton's 1B. And if that does end up happening, and if the Eagles defense still struggles as they have lately to stop opposing running backs, then that ends up being a good bet. And again, I do think that, yeah, sure, the Chargers offense is going to move. They have some good weapons, and I also think their drives will stall out. So that's why I like Dicker to get over 1.5 field goals made. That's going to do it, though, for this video, guys. Appreciate you being here. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. If you guys would like access to the 9to5 PrizePicks Optimizer, plus all the other tools that are available on the 9to5sports.com website, head on over there, get access to all the tools for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. Appreciate you guys being here. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.